Imagine walking into a medical clinic today. You sit down in the examination room, describe your symptoms to the doctor, and, instead of pulling out a prescription pad, the doctor just pauses.
Right.
They check your bank account.
Right.
They ask if you have a tendency to, like, hold grudges or if you just have a generally bad temper. And based on your answers, they look you in the eye and flat out refuse to treat you.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In the modern world, we would call that a massive ethical violation. Probably grounds for a huge lawsuit.
Oh, easily.
But thousands of years ago, that wasn't considered malpractice at all. It was actually a strict, written medical rule.
It sounds incredibly harsh, especially to our modern ears. But the ancient physicians, they didn't really see it as cruelty.
No.
No, not at all. They viewed it as this deeply pragmatic boundary for the science of healing. Like, they recognized that if the patient actively sabotages the environment required for recovery, the medicine simply won't work.
And that brutal pragmatism is exactly what we are exploring today. So welcome to this deep dive. For this one, we are opening up a translated excerpt from this really ancient text called the Aṣṭāṅga Hṛdayam.
Specifically, the very first chapter.
Exactly, which translates to the quest for long life. And our mission here is to extract the foundational principles of Ayurveda, the ancient science of life, and figure out how this framework mapped out the human body and mind in a way that is, honestly, surprisingly relevant to you right now.
He really is.
But before we get into these strict rules of treatment, we need to know why this manual was even written in the first place, right?
Yeah, and to understand that, you really have to look at the historical moment the author was living in. His name was Vata.
Right, Vata.
And if we go back thousands of years, Vata observed this shift in human capacity. He noted that people were experiencing shorter lifespans and their daily lives were becoming much more hurried.
They were basically losing their attention spans.
Essentially, yes. The medical literature at the time was just vast. Like, how vast are we talking?
You had sprawling 1,000-page encyclopedias, things like the Karaka Samhita, which covered general medicine in this exhausting detail.
Wow.
Or the Sushruta Samhita, which was highly technical and focused entirely on complex surgery.
So it would be like asking someone today to learn basic first aid by, handing them a stack of modern neurosurgery textbooks.
That is exactly it. It was just too much. Even the average physician was struggling to keep up with the sheer volume of specialized information.
So Vata decides to curate it.
Yeah, he took on this monumental task. He took all 8 branches of Ayurveda, which, by the way, included general medicine, pediatrics, surgery, toxicology, and even their framework for invisible, infectious, or psychological afflictions.
Wait, they had a branch for invisible psychological stuff?
They did, yeah. It's fascinating. And he distilled the absolute essence of all of it into one single volume.
Okay.
The Aṣṭāṅga Hṛdayam was designed to be sort of the ultimate greatest hits manual. He explicitly stated he wanted a guide that was neither too abridged nor too elaborated. A practical user manual for human existence. I love that. But to use the manual, we first have to understand what Vata actually thought he was treating. So if the goal is life, how did they define it?
Well, it wasn't just biology.
Right, because they didn't just define it as having a pulse and brainwaves. They argued that life is the strict, unbroken combination of 4 very specific elements.
Yes.
And the best way I could visualize this while reading the source material is to think of a car road trip.
I like that. A road trip actually perfectly captures the active nature of their definition.
Okay, let's unpack this. So first, you obviously need the vehicle, the car, that represents your physical body.
Makes sense.
But a car just sitting in a garage isn't a road trip.
Right.
So second, you need the sensors, like the cameras, the GPS, the headlights. That represents your sense organs, right? How you take in the environment around you.
Right, the data gathering.
Exactly. Third, you need the steering wheel and the onboard computer that processes all that sensory data. That represents your mind. And finally, the most important part. None of that machinery matters without a driver behind the wheel, the soul.
The driver.
Yeah. The text states that life is the active combination of the body, the sense organs, the mind, and the soul. If the driver leaves the car, or if the car completely breaks down, the road trip is over.
And, the ancient physicians used very specific terms to emphasize that life isn't passive. Like, one of their definitions translates roughly to that which actively prevents the body from decay.
Wow. Actively prevents.
Yeah, it implies that living is this constant uphill battle against deterioration. But that brings up a much deeper philosophical question, I think. If life is this constant, exhausting effort of maintenance, Why bother? Like, why go on this quest for a long life in the first place?
Yeah, and I found their answer to that surprisingly refreshing. Because it wasn't just, to avoid dying.
No, not
The text explicitly says that health and a long life are not the final goals. They are just the prerequisites for achieving 4 main aims of human existence.
the 4 aims.
The first is dharma, which means walking an ethical, righteous path.
Okay.
The second is artha, the acquisition of wealth and resources. The third is kama, the fulfillment of lawful desires. And the fourth is moksha, ultimate spiritual liberation.
The inclusion of wealth artha often really surprises people when they read these ancient, supposedly mystical texts.
Oh, it definitely surprised me. I mean, I usually associate ancient spiritual writings with, like, strict asceticism, give away all your worldly possessions, go sit in a cave and meditate on a mountain.
Right, the hermit trope.
Exactly. But this text flat out says, no, earning money is an essential objective for human life.
Because it's a science of living in the world, not escaping it.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. A destitute society cannot support its vulnerable members.
Yeah.
It can't build infrastructure or, sustain complex medical care. You need resources to participate fully in society.
So they weren't anti-wealth at all.
Not at all. The text just adds the moral caveat that you shouldn't acquire that wealth by harming others. But to gather those resources, to pursue your desires, and to find spiritual clarity, your physical vehicle has to run properly.
Okay, so if the soul is the driver, what exactly is the engine made of? Because they obviously didn't have MRIs or blood tests back then. How did they map out the physical mechanics of the car?
They mapped it using these biological forces called the doshas.
The doshas.
Specifically, 3 primary forces: Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And these aren't physical organs you can touch. They are functional energies.
Okay.
When they are in a state of balance, they are the exact forces that build and sustain your healthy body. But when they are aggravated out of their proper proportion, they become the literal root cause of disease.
Okay, I need to stop you there for a second because I was reading through this section and I got a little hung up.
Oh.
Yeah, there's this whole historical debate mentioned where some ancient scholars argue that blood should be classified as a 4th dosha.
Ah, yes. The blood debate.
Right. But Vagpada completely shuts that down. He draws a really hard line against it. Why? I mean, blood seems pretty foundational to whether the engine runs or not.
It is foundational, absolutely. But what's fascinating here is that Vagpada's rejection comes down to the strict mathematical definition of what a dosha actually is.
Okay, what is it?
The word dosha inherently means that which has the power to corrupt or spoil.
To corrupt.
Right. And Vagpada points out that blood doesn't wander around the body actively attacking or corrupting other systems. Blood is categorized strictly as a tissue, a dhatu.
That's tissue. Got it.
It gets corrupted by a spike in Vata, Pitta, or Kapha. Because blood is the victim of the imbalance, not the perpetrator, it mathematically cannot be classified as a dosha.
Okay, that clarifies things. The doshas are the active agents of chaos or harmony, and the tissues are just the materials they act upon.
Exactly.
And what is really wild about these 3 forces is that they operate on a continuous biological clock. They govern different times of your day and even different stages of your life.
Yes, the rhythms are incredibly precise. Let's look at Kapha, for instance.
Yep.
Kapha is the energy of physical structure, heaviness, and lubrication, and it naturally dominates the morning hours. It's why we often feel a bit sluggish or heavy right when we wake up.
Oh, that makes sense.
But it also dominates the childhood stage of your life.
Wait, why childhood? I would think kids are just full of hyper energy.
Well, think about what a child's body is fundamentally doing. It is rapidly building bone, muscle, and tissue from scratch.
Oh, right. They're growing.
Exactly. Kapha is the biological force of building. It's like the mortar between the bricks. So a child's body is naturally saturated with Kapha, which is also why kids are so prone to heavy mucus-related illnesses,
Yeah.
like congestion and constant runny noses.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that makes total sense. Then you move into the middle of your life, which is governed by Pitta.
Right.
And Pitta is the energy of fire, transformation, and digestion. It rules the midday, right when the sun is highest, and it rules middle age.
The productive years.
Yeah, this is the time when you are digesting your life experiences, building a career, burning through ambition.
Exactly.
And finally, you have Vata, which is the energy of wind, movement, and dryness. Vata dominates the evening hours, and it rules old age.
Which perfectly explains the physical realities of aging. As Vata, wind and dryness increases in the final third of life, our joints dry out and lose lubrication. Our skin loses moisture.
Yeah.
And the physical structure naturally begins to deteriorate.
And the text explains that while we all go through these cycles, your specific individual baseline constitution is actually locked in at the exact moment of your conception.
It is.
The dominant dosha present during the union of the reproductive elements sets your factory default settings for life.
Yeah.
So some people are naturally more Kapha, some more Pitta, some more Vata.
Right.
But if our baseline is set before we were even born, how much agency do we actually have? Like, are we just stuck on those tracks?
Oh, we have immense agency. And it all comes down to the fundamental physics of Ayurvedic medicine, which is the rule of similarity.
The rule of similarity.
Right. The text argues that ingesting food or engaging in activities that share similar qualities to a tissue or a dosha in your body will directly increase that tissue or dosha. Conversely, applying opposite qualities will decrease it.
So it's not just the old saying, you are what you eat. Ayurveda seems to view digestion more like a 3D printer building your physical tissues layer by layer.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. Digestion isn't a furnace where food just disappears into pure energy. It's a sequential biological supply chain.
Okay.
When you digest a meal, it first converts into a nutrient fluid like plasma. That plasma circulates and takes a few days to nourish and build your blood tissue.
Wow, days.
Yeah. And then the blood nourishes the muscle nourishes the fat, all the way down to the bone marrow and reproductive tissue.
Which means a bad meal isn't just empty calories. It is faulty ink in the 3D printer.
Yes.
If you put the wrong raw material into the start of the supply chain, you are sending faulty building blocks down the line to every single tissue in your body for days to come.
Precisely. And the primary way we manipulate this math, the way we choose our ink, is through our diet, specifically through the 6 tastes.
Right. Sweet, sour, salty, bitter, pungent, and astringent.
Yes.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. I always thought of taste as just culinary concepts, just flavor profiles for cooking. But this text treats them as biological triggers.
They absolutely are.
Let's test this out. If I have a spike in Vata, so my wind energy is out of control, I'm feeling erratic, maybe anxious, and physically dried out, what kind of taste do I need to fix that?
Well, think about the qualities of Vata. Wind is light, cold, and mobile. To counteract that, you need the opposite.
Okay.
You need tastes that are heavy, warm, and grounding. That would be sweet, sour, and salty.
Ah, so that's why comfort food is a thing.
Exactly.
When people feel ungrounded or stressed out, they naturally crave a heavy, warm, sweet, or salty meal because the heavy, dense qualities of that food physically anchor and calm that erratic wind energy.
Exactly. But there's a catch.
Oh.
Because sweet and salty tastes are heavy and dense, while they calm down your Vata, they simultaneously increase your Kapha, your structural heavy energy.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Right, so if you already have a Kapha imbalance, if you're feeling sluggish and congested, eating that heavy sweet meal will make you exponentially sicker. Every single meal is a calculated dosage of medicine or poison. It depends entirely on what your specific engine needs in that exact moment.
Okay, so diet is the raw material. But we don't just consume food. We interact with the environment around us. What happens when our behavior outside of the kitchen becomes toxic?
This is where the framework expands beautifully. The ancient physicians outlined 3 core errors that cause all disease, whether in the body or the mind.
3 errors.
Yes. Insufficient utilization, wrong utilization, and excessive utilization. And you can apply these 3 errors to your senses, your time, and your physical activities.
So what does this all mean? Let's use an analogy for the senses, like your sense of hearing. Listening to a conversation at a normal volume is proper utilization. You're using the sensor correctly.
Right.
Insufficient utilization would be sitting in total, isolating silence in a dark room. You're depriving your sense organ of any input at all.
Yes, starvation of the senses.
And wrong utilization would be subjecting yourself to harsh, abrasive sounds, like a jackhammer, or deeply unpleasant shouting that causes a physical stress response. And excessive utilization is putting your earphones in, cranking the volume to the absolute maximum, and listening until your ears are literally ringing.
That perfectly illustrates how we damage the sensory pathways. But, it gets even more profound when you apply those 3 errors to time, meaning the seasons.
Oh, interesting.
Your body synchronizes with the environment. Let's say it's the dead of winter. Your pores are closed to conserve heat, and your internal temperature is regulated for a cold environment. Experiencing cold weather is the proper utilization of that time.
But what if there's a massive unseasonal heat wave in January?
That is wrong utilization of time. It's not your fault, obviously, but suddenly it's 85 degrees and your internal thermostat is completely out of sync.
Yeah, you feel awful.
Right. The environment itself will provoke illness in the population because the engine's settings just don't match the road conditions.
And it applies to our physical activities too. Like doing a normal workout is proper. Never getting off the couch is insufficient. But what really caught my eye was how they described wrong utilization of activities.
Oh, the urges.
Yes. The text specifically warns against suppressing natural bodily urges, like forcing yourself not to sneeze or, holding it in when you urgently need to go to the bathroom.
Mhm.
Why is suppressing a sneeze considered a primary driver of disease?
Because your body is a pressurized system. A biological urge, whether it's a sneeze, a cough, or a bowel movement, is a natural downward or outward movement of energy designed to expel something.
Okay.
If you clamp down on there, you are forcefully trapping that pressure and redirecting it backward into your tissues.
Right.
You are literally reversing the engine's exhaust back into the motor. Over time, that displaced pressure corrupts the doshas.
Man, it's all about managing the pressure and the inputs. And the text is super clear that the body isn't the only thing taking a hit from bad inputs. They identify two distinct receptacles for disease: the physical body and the mind.
Right.
And the mind has its own distinct operating qualities.
Yes. The mind is governed by three qualities. Sattva, which represents clarity, goodness, and harmony.
Okay.
Then there is Rajas, which represents passion, ambition, and constant, relentless movement. And finally, Tamas, which represents ignorance, lethargy, and darkness.
But the ancient physicians made a massive distinction here that feels incredibly relevant today.
They did.
They state that only sattva, that state of clarity, is considered conducive to health. Rajas and tamas are categorized as the two literal doshas of the mind, meaning they are, by definition, psychological disorders.
Because a mind dominated by tamas is cut off from reality and completely lethargic, and a mind dominated by rajas is endlessly restless.
Always move.
Right. Constantly craving the next achievement and fundamentally unable to find peace. Only a sattvic mind can properly steer the vehicle.
So let's say the whole system breaks down. Whether you've been eating the wrong tastes, blasting your ears with maximum volume, holding in your sneezes, or you just suffer an external accident.
Right.
You are sick. The vehicle is smoking on the side of the road. How do they actually go about fixing it?
They viewed treatment as a coordinated effort requiring 4 distinct pillars, or limbs: the physician, the drug, the attendant, which is the nursing staff, and the patient themselves.
But not all pillars carry the same weight.
Not at all. The physician is paramount. A truly exceptional, deeply knowledgeable doctor can actually navigate around poor quality drugs, an unskilled nurse, or a difficult patient.
Wow.
But an ignorant physician renders the best hospital and the most expensive medicines completely useless. If the doctor doesn't understand the physics of the doshas, they will administer the right drug at the wrong time.
And when a skilled doctor does intervene, the text outlines 2 main strategies: palliative care and elimination therapy.
And Vagbhata is uncompromising about which is better. Palliative care just uses drugs to temporarily calm the aggravated doshas and suppress the symptoms. But the root cause, the corrupted material, is still sitting inside the tissues.
Oh, so it can just come back.
Exactly. The disease can relapse at any moment.
It's like hitting the snooze button on a blaring smoke detector. You stop the annoying noise, but you haven't actually dealt with the fire in the kitchen.
That's a perfect analogy. Elimination therapies, on the other hand, are designed to put the fire out.
Okay.
These involve some pretty intense, physically demanding cleanses like medicated purgation to physically expel the corrupted doshas from the body entirely.
That sounds intense.
It is. But once that toxic material is removed, the chance of the disease relapsing is 0.
But to undergo that kind of intense treatment, you need the 4th pillar to be strong. You need the patient. And the text is shockingly blunt about what makes an acceptable patient. They must be completely obedient. They need a good memory to accurately narrate the history of their symptoms. They need a strong will to endure those intense elimination cleanses. And crucially, they must be wealthy enough to afford the necessary drugs and equipment.
It highlights that advanced medicine was a highly resource-intensive endeavor even thousands of years ago.
But the text goes even further, and this brings us right back to our starting point at the beginning of the deep dive.
The discarded patients.
Yes, it outlines a category of patients to be entirely discarded. A literal list of people a doctor is instructed to walk away from.
Right.
If a patient is violently aggressive, deeply ungrateful, lacks the financial resources for the equipment, or if they're disobedient and try to act like they are the doctor, the physician is told not to treat them. I was really surprised by this list.
It is jarring.
It completely challenges our modern assumption that doctors have a duty to treat absolutely everyone, regardless of their behavior.
It forces us to ask hard questions about the boundaries of medical care. To the ancient physicians, medicine was a strict partnership. The physician's duty was to the preservation of life.
Right.
But if a patient is actively pouring gasoline on that kitchen fire while the doctor is trying to extinguish it, whether by refusing to follow dietary rules, being abusive to the attendants, or hiding symptoms, they compromise the entire science.
Wow.
Wasting precious time in rare medicines on a patient actively fighting the cure was considered a violation of the doctor's broader duty to society.
It is a brutal truth, but it makes you realize how deeply they respected the fragility of the healing process. If one partner refuses to participate, the contract is void.
It is a system that demands ultimate self-awareness and personal responsibility. It forces you to realize that every single bite of food you eat, every sound you expose yourself to, and every urge you suppress is actively either building your health or slowly dismantling your engine.
We have covered some incredible ground today. We've explored the fundamental definition of life as this four-part engine driven by the soul. We mapped the biological software of the doshas, looked at the 3D printer mechanics of our digestion, and examined the incredibly strict, uncompromising rules of ancient medical treatment.
It's a lot to process.
It really is. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder, and it connects back to how this ancient text views the mind. We talked about how the text categorizes sattva clarity and harmony as the only healthy mental state.
Right.
And it strictly labels rajas, the energy of relentless action, passion, and endless ambition, as a literal psychological disease.
A literal dosha.
Right. So think about our modern world. Think about the hustle culture we live in today. We exist in a society that heavily rewards relentless activity, perpetual motion, and the constant striving for more.
Always grinding.
Always. We celebrate the people who never stop working. Are we actually socially conditioning ourselves on a mass scale into a state of chronic rajas? Are we building our external wealth, our artha, while celebrating what ancient medicine categorized as a fundamental psychological sickness?
It is a profound contradiction. We might be securing the resources for the road trip, but we are completely destroying the driver in the process.
Something to really think about the next time you feel that overwhelming pressure to constantly be doing something. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Aṣṭāṅga Hṛdayam. I highly encourage you to take a moment today and examine how you are utilizing your own time, your senses, and your activities. Are you honoring your baseline, or are you running your engine into the ground? Because at the end of the day, it's your body, it's your life. And as we learned today, you are the only one who can actually read the manual and steer the car. Until next time.